and that's what the meaning is. So let's look at the word application. What is its definition? If you look it up in Black's Law Dictionary, you find that it means to beg. To beg, to plead, petition, implore, entreat, or request. But essentially, it is to beg. Now, let's look at what the assumptions are for those who are begging. What are these assumptions? One, he who begs, they generally know exactly what they're begging for. They know what they want. Another assumption must be that they know what they're willing to give up for it. For the most part, if you're begging, it means zero. The other assumption is that since you never beg for something from someone who doesn't have the power to grant you the thing you're begging for, the assumption must be that the beggar accepts that there exists a grantor. Some power capable of granting the wish or the desire or saying yes to the request or the begging. So knowing these assumptions, now let's look at what the implications are within knowing this. Now we're talking about begging here. The beggar must know what they're asking for. They must know what they're giving up in exchange. They must accept that there exists a grantor. The implication of all of this, if you start thinking about it, one, it must be entirely voluntary at all times. No one can force you to beg, request anything. And since you have to give something up, and that is an act of abandonment, no one can ever force you. And therefore, the act of application must always, by virtue of its definition and the assumptions that definition rests upon, the implication is it's always voluntary. The other implication is that since you're recognizing over here the existence of a grantor, and it is the beggar who is initiating, that's the other assumption we must, because the beggar is always the one initiating the contract or the interaction. So they're always the initiator. What does this imply? It means that the grantor must be free of liability. The other thing is, since the beggar apparently knows exactly what he wants, what he's giving up for, and acknowledges the power of the grantor, the implication is that he loses the ability or the right to claim deception. Of course, if you don't know what the word application is, you're going to get hooped, not because of their deception, but because of your own ignorance. But the implication of the word application, through the definition and the assumption, the implication must be it's voluntary, the grantor must be free of liability, and there is no deception on the part of the grantor. What this means, now we get to the power of the word. What this means is, this word has a certain amount of power, and what it does is it transfers liability. To the beggar. So even if you're going to someone who has the liability to begin with, and they have a duty to provide you with some goods or services. And then they say, would you please fill out this application? And you do. You have just, by virtue of the fact that you have begged, transferred their liability and accepted it, and you have freed them from any claims that they might be acting in a deceptive manner, any claims that they are liable, and you can't ever claim that you were compelled to do it. It's why it's one of their trickiest words. And this is why, in order to understand the power of the word, when you look at a word, you must look at the definition, analyze the assumptions, and then deduce the implications. Now, your assignment for this week's, folks, lesson number 2, need you to learn to analyze the assumptions. You pick out 50 words. Do this 50 times. You'll develop the skills that you're going to need. Wax on, wax off. Learn to analyze the assumptions on 50 words. Deduce what those implications are. It can be any word. Shoes, I don't care. But you do that for 50 words. Also, what I would like you to do is rate, comment, share, and favorite this video. And if you can afford it, a small donation to PayPal will certainly make my Christmas much merrier. And on that note, I hope you guys all have a very Merry Christmas, a Happy New Year, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Holidays, a killer Kwanzaa, whatever's gonna float your boat. I hope it floats far and wide. Well, folks, if you enjoy these lessons, the fundamentals of freedom, please make a small donation to Mr. Mighty, MRMITEE, at excite.com. Couple of bucks, $5, $10. If everyone who were watching these lessons and found value in it donated $5, I would do I would do quite well, I hope. And it would certainly help motivate me to do the 30 or so lessons that I'm trying to get done. They do take a lot of energy and effort, though. I do hope you find value in it. And if you want to support my efforts, small donations are gracefully and gratefully appreciated and accepted through Mr. Mighty at excite.com, PayPal. And yeah, do it. It'll make you feel good.